to pick up some groceries. I once heard someone say that when it comes to going to the store, women shop, but men hunt. And I was on a hunt to find Rinaldi tomato sauce, no salt added. There were hundreds of different kinds of tomato sauce, it appeared. I could find every tomato sauce imaginable except the one that I wanted. And I was so eager to find the sauce that I wasn't paying attention. And I rammed my shoulder into a portable shelf that was sticking out inside the aisle. And I knocked over all these bottles and cans. I looked around, there was a young woman there, and in her basket had two twin boys, and the little toddler's eyes were brown buttons. And the woman had a look of horror on her face. I said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I'm going to go take care of this mess. Please, I didn't mean to startle you. And I turned, and as I walked away, one of the twins said, Mommy, what is wrong with that man? So I turned around, the woman had one of these, apologetic looks on her face, like, I'm sorry. I said, no. I said, it's a fair question. It's just that I don't have time to give an adequate answer. And with that, she just went expressionless and walked away. So, but sometimes the things that I do when I'm out in public make me smile, and they used to bother me more when I was younger. So there is something about getting on with age a little bit. But some of our eccentricities, our quirkiness, can be very, very endearing if we stop and take the time to reframe what might be a judgment and say, that's all right. It's all good. It's all good. I had mentioned to you before that I had a storefront studio in Pomona, California for 8 years. And I never knew who was going to come to the door and visit. One time I was working and I heard a knock on my door, and all the noise reverberates in the studio because of the structure, because of the concrete floor. And so I went over to the door, and there was a short, elderly woman who asked if she might look at my art. I said, of course, come on in. She says, you don't have to stay here. You can go back and do your work. I just want to spend some time here. And so I was back doing my work, and I noticed that she had been there for quite a long time. And so I walked out just to maybe engage her in conversation. And when I went up to her, I saw that she was standing in front of a recently completed commission. The commission, which I had just hung on my wall, was done at the request of a couple who had gone to Poland, had visited the German death camps when Poland was being occupied by the Nazis, and they brought me back some dirt, little pebbles, a piece of brick from the death camp. And they wanted me to do an artistic piece commemorating valiant people who endured tragedy. And I was working on the piece while the fires were raging in the foothills adjacent to where I lived. And I could literally breathe in the smoke. And I could see the fire that rimmed the top of the hills. And I saw that the woman was crying softly as she was looking at this piece. I said, "It really moves you, doesn't it?" She says, "My name is Eva Fleischner." It turns out Eva Fleischner is one of the world's authorities on the Holocaust. She lived over at Pilgrim's Place in Claremont, California. I ended up going with her and some of her family members to dinner at the home of the clients who I did the piece for. We had a delightful evening. It was heartfelt, it was educational, and unforgettable. There's no way that was an accident. That was one of those beautiful series of events that sometimes we're so close to that we cannot see the connectedness. I love the reflection about the story of Mindra. That is so much a part of my theology. It has been so much a part of my theology for the last maybe 10 years. I am fascinated with the writings, teaching of Desjardins. To put his vision simply, it would be that the foundation of all reality is love. Now, this is very much in keeping with my tradition, which is the Christian tradition, which says we're terrified of this great truth, and we've done everything historically to keep from facing it. But the truth is that it is the power of the cosmic Christ, which is unconditional love. The East speaks of enlightenment. It doesn't matter what term we give it, but there is an energy, this essence of what we call God, which is in Christ at the very beginning. The gospel writer John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning was the fire of unconditional love." And right now, Desjardins would say, he was saying this back in the early 20th century, that everything will one day be consumed into this unconditional love. Not just human beings, but all creatures. Everything that has ever existed will be one. The East has been teaching this forever, and it's there in the Western scriptures. Did you know that in all the writings of St. Paul, he never once speaks of the historical Jesus? He didn't care. Every time Paul mentions Christ, it's the cosmic Christ. The cosmic Christ is what knocked him off his horse. It was that unconditional, inexplicable sense of love that knocked him off his horse. And it's right there in front of us in our scriptures. But what we've done is we've taken Jesus and we've redressed him and we've kept him to be just like us. And that's wrong, I think. It is the cosmic Christ. Desjardins said this, and I think it's just so beautiful. He said this in 1936. "The day will come when, after harnessing space, the winds, the tides, and gravitation, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And on that day, for the second time in the history of the world, we shall have discovered fire." In 1924, I love this. He said, "Science alone cannot discover Christ, but Christ satisfies the yearnings that are born in our hearts in the school of science. Science will, in all probability, be increasingly impregnated by mysticism. This has happened. I was just reading an article recently in one of the major magazines talking about how so many scientists are fascinated with mysticism. The scientists are so often now, more than in recent decades, are being fascinated by what is unknowable, what they don't know. And they're talking in mystical language. He said this in 1924, and it's come to pass. And I think it's just so in keeping with the wonderful spirit that you all have. Your collective theology, I think, is marvelous. Like I say, the story, the parable today is just so perfect. And I'll close with this because I was told 20 minutes. Do I have just 1 minute left? These paintings, in case you're wondering, people who have not seen these before, are a revelation of who I am. No artist can do anything without revealing who they are as a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. Okay, it's impossible. We put ourselves out there. From the time I was a little boy, I was told to keep my hands off of things. My mom, I told you this last time, and Dad would say things like, "For God's sake, Bill, do you have to touch everything?" And I think, of course I do. I don't know it unless I touch it. So now I'm making art, and I tell people to touch it because the oil in the human skin actually it blesses the acrylic paint. It makes it better. So and it's my most developed sense, my sense of touch. And so I would encourage you, if you want to see these, to also touch them. And what I'm using is very simple shapes, but they are essential shapes that are found in every civilization throughout the history of the world. I've also brought, and there's patterns and sequences, and there's nothing new in the work that I do. And I brought these little crosses, 3 little crosses. Now, I show these actually in commercial galleries, mostly in the Southwest. These crosses are not simply a reference to Christianity by any means. These little crosses, and I have a little card with a quote on it explaining it. The cross is ubiquitous in human history. The cross is found in all civilizations from the beginning of recorded time. We find it in ancient Egypt. To me, the most aesthetically beautiful cross is the ancient Assyrian cross. It's got nothing to do with Christianity. So we have to expand our way of looking and thinking, I believe, and to see that this beautiful cross, this intersection, has always been and will always be everywhere. And it can be a symbol that would have us pause and consider the interconnectedness which distinguishes us as human beings. We have so much more in common. And so often we use our different religions and different philosophies and our different politics to just keep ourselves separate. And we just waste a whole lot of energy on so many things which just don't really matter in the long run. So I wish you all many blessings and thank you for your patience. And if I went overboard time-wise, I apologize. All right, have a good rest of your day.